I decided to divorce Leo Thompson. The first day I made up my mind, I threw away my wedding ring and bought a plane ticket. On the second day, I emptied the marital home of all traces. On the third day, I picked up my child from school and bought him everything he wanted to eat. The tiny child disdainfully said, "Daddy's marrying Aunt Sophia Moore and you're scared? It's too late to try to please me." I looked at his face exactly like Leo Thompson's. There wasn't even a trace of reluctance left in my heart. Garbage belongs in the garbage can with the garbage. Sophia Moore is willing to recycle, so of course I'm going to make her happy. The decision to want a divorce was made quite suddenly. I still couldn't get through to Leo Thompson that day. Just like several times in the past 6 months, it was always his secretary who answered. "I'm sorry ma'am, Mr. Fu has instructed that private trips are not to be disclosed to anyone." But not a moment later, Sophia Moore posted a set of photos on her social account. I recognized the Bulgari wedding ring on Leo Thompson's hand. Sophia Moore was Leo Thompson's first love. In the 5th year of my marriage to Leo Thompson, she was ready for a divorce and returned home. From the first day she returned home, Leo Thompson's heart was in turmoil. Actually, after I hung up the phone, it was just a little hard. The thought of divorce hadn't been strong enough. Until I suddenly fainted with low blood sugar. It was just me and Noah Thompson, who had just gotten out of school, in the room. After passing out for about 10 minutes, I was woken up by the sound of him playing a game and yelling. But Noah Thompson only took one look at me and continued to play the game. It was too much for me to handle, so I could only ask him for help with all my might. "Zeechan, help mommy get a chocolate, will you?" Noah Thompson sniffed and impatiently stood up holding the tablet. But he bypassed me and went straight out of the bedroom. The moment the door slammed. That very second. I suddenly figured it out. There was Noah Thompson back then, stemming from Sophia Moore marrying a man and Leo Thompson buying a drunken stupor. I wasn't actually going to have him. The doctors didn't recommend it either. After all, Leo Thompson drank too much that night. But he proposed to me and begged me earnestly to keep the baby. I had loved him for so many years, how could I refuse? So I married and had the baby. But now, the child I carried in October. The child I brought up with my own hands. But he is so cold and selfish that it makes people's teeth cold. So, why should I continue to settle for him in such a marriage? Leo Thompson still comes back late at night. I didn't sleep and waited for him. He seemed to be in a good mood. He took a small box out of his pocket and handed it to me. "See if you like it." I opened it and it was a bracelet. In the photo Sophia Moore posted today, there was a very shiny necklace. If I'm not mistaken, this simple bracelet is a freebie for the necklace, right? But I didn't even feel sad in my heart. Even smiled at him, "It's quite pretty." Leo Thompson seemed relieved. "It's good that you like it." When he came out of the shower, he handed me the towel as usual. I took it as usual. I was half drying my wet hair when I suddenly stopped moving my hands. "Leo Thompson." I whispered his name. He sat unmoving, but raised his hand and took hold of my arm. "What, want it?" I smiled in the sun. Sophia Moore had been back for 5 months, and Leo Thompson and I hadn't been in the same room for 5 months. When I didn't say anything, Leo Thompson simply turned around and yanked me into his arms. Lockjaw. The bottom of his eyes gradually got a little hot, and he lowered his head, wanting to kiss me. But I pushed him away. "Leo Thompson." I smiled at him calmly, word for word, calm to a fault. "Let's get a divorce." "Divorce?" He was obviously surprised. "Yeah, divorce." I wrenched myself out of his arms and took a step backward to stand still. "Because of Sophia Moore?" Leo Thompson frowned impatiently. "You know she's going through a divorce, I'm just helping her out." His eyes suddenly paused on my ring finger. The wedding ring was gone and there was a faint circle of marks on my finger. "Amanda Johnson, you're a mom, why are you still so willful?" I turned and headed out the door. "The divorce papers are on your study table. Take a look at the property division there, I just want what I deserve. If you have no objections, please sign the papers quickly." "Where's Noah Thompson?" Leo Thompson's voice was already filled with anger. "Don't forget, his last name is Fu, and he is my Leo Thompson's son." I gripped the doorknob and turned back to him and smiled. "Well, he's Fu's flesh and blood, so I'm not going to argue with you." "Amanda Johnson." Leo Thompson grimaced. "What the hell are you making a scene about? Because I've been neglecting you these days? I told you, Sophia Moore is getting a divorce, and I'm just helping her with her lawsuit. Also, Seachin is only 5 years old, he can't be without a mom. Leo Thompson picked up his clothes with a cold face. I'll take today's incident as you playing with your temper. I'm staying at the company's house for the next few days. Amanda Johnson, come back to me when you've figured it out and know you're wrong. The next afternoon, Leo Thompson got a call from the maid over at the marital home. Amanda Johnson had cleared out all her things. And she who always loved Noah Thompson and did everything herself. For the first time, she didn't take him to school herself. He couldn't help but think of the divorce agreement Amanda Johnson had prepared. It was written in black and white that she did not want custody of Noah Thompson. This was very disconcerting to Leo Thompson. Amanda Johnson didn't have a good delivery in the first place. Noah Thompson was born and put into an incubator. After she came out of the womb, she began to raise the child herself. In these 5 years, she hadn't left Noah Thompson for a day. So, he doesn't believe that Amanda Johnson would not want a baby. So, she made such a scene this time. But it's just because of being jealous of Sophia Moore. And the reason why she is jealous is of course, because Amanda Johnson loves him miserably. Leo Thompson knew that she had been secretly in love with him for years. When he and Sophia Moore first fell in love, she was just an unassuming little girl. Then he and Sophia Moore broke up due to a misunderstanding. When Amanda Johnson appeared beside him again, she had already grown up. It's hard to tell if that night's drunken escapades were really an accident. Or was it just that he was also a little moved? After 5 years of marriage, their married life was very harmonious. Until Sophia Moore came along. He did leave her alone for a few months. But no matter what, Amanda Johnson couldn't just ask for a divorce. So he still decided to teach her a little lesson. The maid called again, Mr. Fu, Mrs. called for a car at this moment, saying she wants to move out. Leo Thompson lit a cigarette in silence. Staring down at the wedding ring on his ring finger again. Only after a while did he coldly say, let her go, tell her, one step out, don't want to come back. I picked up Noah Thompson an hour early. Bought all the toys he wanted again. All the junk food he wanted and I wouldn't let him have. Noah Thompson, on the other hand, didn't look too happy. He scrunched up his little face and spoke disdainfully. Was it the knowledge that Daddy was going to marry Aunt Sophia Moore that scared you? It's too late to try to please me. He dropped the toys one by one on the floor and stomped on them again. The food went into the trash. Then he looked at me smugly, if you hit me, I'll tell Daddy right away. I looked at his face, which was exactly the same as Leo Thompson's. I really didn't want to let go of him. My heart really did not feel any reluctance at all. Noah Thompson. I touched his face one last time. I won't bother you anymore. Let's say goodbye for good today, and in the future, never see each other again. What do you mean? Noah Thompson was a bit stunned and subconsciously tried to pull me. But I avoided it, and smiled at him again. It means, I don't want you anymore. Noah Thompson completely froze. A few moments later, his eyes seemed to flash a flash of aggression. But immediately after, but then fiercely glared at me, who cares if you want, Aunt Sophia Moore is 100 times better than you. Well, you let her be your mom then. I raised my eyebrows indifferently, Noah Thompson, good luck. The flights were booked to Port City. I was having a great time for half a month with my best BFF from my student days. Until Leo Thompson's phone call to my bestie. Amanda Johnson, Seachin is sick and is making a fuss about you. I thought about it and calmly said, it's normal for kids to get sick during the change of season. The Fu family has a family doctor and a private hospital, they will treat and take care of him properly. Leo Thompson said nothing and hung up the phone directly. My girlfriend asked me, Luchu, do you really don't even want the baby? She knew how much effort I had spent on Noah Thompson. I nodded, well, don't want it. Then, Leo Thompson, do you still like him? Once upon a time, whenever I heard the name Leo Thompson, my heart couldn't help but beat wildly. But now, I don't feel any waves at all. I don't like him anymore. It's true, I don't like it anymore. My best friend couldn't help but cheer, Lok Chor, we have to celebrate, just tonight, let's not get drunk. My first time with Leo Thompson came from alcohol. Only then, I was sober and Leo Thompson was the one who was drunk. This time, I was drunk. The man in front of me was always sober and restrained. Even when he held me up, it was a gentleman's hand. My best friend stumbled for a long time before coming over to me. "Ryan Anderson, could you please take lockjaw back?" Ryan Anderson didn't respond and helped the almost paralyzed me sit down on the couch. "Leave the driver with you, I'll drive myself back." "Ryan Anderson. You really don't care about lockjaw?" Ryan Anderson's gaze was faint. "What I said 5 years ago, her matter, and I have nothing to do with it anymore." I suddenly laughed silently. Yes, when Leo Thompson drunkenly forced himself on me. Ryan Anderson insisted on calling the police. But I was so in love that I finally chose to marry him. Ryan Anderson is my bamboo horse, we grew up together. Because of the incident with Leo Thompson, he was so disappointed in me that he broke off contact with me. I never thought I'd meet him tonight. I heard he's been abroad all these years and never came back. Who knew we would meet in a bar in Hong Kong City? I hid the embarrassment in my heart and called out to my girlfriend in a low voice. "Luna, let him go, I can go back by myself." Ryan Anderson didn't say anything, turned around and left with big strides. But his BFF helped me out of the bar. His Bentley was parked on the side of the road with its dual flashers on. Ryan Anderson was leaning against the car, smoking, cigarette butt scattered around him. "Amanda Johnson." He smiled, and it was a smile with indescribable bitterness. "I must have owed you in a previous life." He helped me into the car. And arranged for a driver to take my girlfriend back. When the car got to the floor of the hotel where I was staying, Ryan Anderson parked the car and unbuckled his seatbelt. Then leaned over, cupped my jaw, and kissed me. My whole body was in a daze. Maybe it was the alcohol that made me dizzy. I actually wrapped my arms around his neck and met his kiss. "Amanda Johnson." Ryan Anderson's kiss deepened. His fingers ran through my long hair and clasped the back of my head, forcing me to meet him. It was almost impossible to catch my breath before he ended the kiss. Lowering his head, his forehead against mine, "Want it?" I jerked back to the screenshot of the chat I'd received a month ago. It was from Leo Thompson to Sophia Moore. Want to do it again with you." At the time, I was thinking about Noah Thompson and was in a deep, agonizing tangle. But now, I didn't care about anything. I leaned right back and kissed him, hooking my arms around his neck. "Ryan Anderson, let's do it." But Ryan Anderson gripped my shoulders and pushed me away lightly. In the floating light, his handsome brow was incredibly serious and focused. "Amanda Johnson, I have one condition." "What's that?" "I'm a very traditional man." Ryan Anderson smiled with downcast eyes, and his fingers, gripping my shoulders, tightened with a slight tremor. "If you do this, you'll be responsible for me." I sobered up most of my drink when he said that. Responsible. Those 2 words were too heavy. And it stabbed right into that old wound in my heart. When Leo Thompson proposed to me, he was also responsible for the so-called drunkenness. Seeing that I didn't say anything, Ryan Anderson let out a soft laugh. "Amanda Johnson." He brushed the messy hair off my forehead and looked at me deeply with downcast eyes. "Don't mess with me if you don't want to be responsible. You know, I'm not the kind of man who takes things lightly." He gently pushed me away and turned to get out of the car. He pulled the door open for me again. "Come on down, I'll take you back to your room." He stood there, tall but stocky. With the light at his back, I couldn't see the emotions on his face. But only felt inexplicably sad. Ryan Anderson walked me to the door of my room, watched me go in, and then simply left. I leaned against the back of the door and didn't move for a long time. I don't know if it's the alcohol that's making me hard. Or the last look Ryan Anderson gave me when he left just now. The last words spoken. He said, "Amanda Johnson, I have a 3 a.m. flight tonight, and after that, I don't think I'll ever come back." The cell phone rang suddenly and abruptly. My thoughts were pulled back abruptly. There was something familiar about the caller's number, but I couldn't recall it for a moment. I picked it up, but it was the voice of Leo Thompson's other secretary. "Mrs. Thompson." The secretary's voice sounded very respectful and cautious. "It's like this, Mr. Fu drank too much tonight and just threw up. He didn't want to drink the sobering-up soup, cooked by the maid, saying that the flavor wasn't right. Mrs., can you come back?" I directly interrupted his words. "If you don't want to drink the sobering-up soup, then take the antidote. I'm not a servant of the Fu family, and I'm not a doctor. Don't look for me for things like this in the future." Right, by the way, please remind Mr. Fu about the divorce. Mrs. The secretary wanted to say something else, but was interrupted by Leo Thompson's deep, angry voice. Who told you to call her? Vincent Wong, you are getting more and more bold now. But Mr. Fu. Shut up. My business has nothing to do with Amanda Johnson. If you make a fool of yourself again, you can resign yourself. I didn't bother to listen to this, and hung up the phone. The bottom of my heart did not fluctuate in the slightest, and in passing, I pulled Secretary Song's phone number into the blacklist as well. At 1 in the morning, I woke up with an inexplicable start. Twitter turned up Ryan Anderson's account. In the 5 years that I'd been married to Leo Thompson, we hadn't even sent a single word of holiday cheer between us. But his avatar was the same one he'd used for over a decade. A crudely carved puppet. Barely recognizable as a little boy. It was the first doll I carved when I learned wood carving on a whim. I later gave it to him. I stared at the avatar and couldn't help but smile. But as I laughed, tears inexplicably fell. I sent Ryan Anderson a tweet. Ryan Anderson, my teeth hurt so bad I can't sleep. The top of the dialog box quickly showed that it was being typed. But there was a delay in the message coming through. Just as I was about to fall sleepy asleep waiting, the WeChat alert tone sounded. I bought you some medicine, and the same City Express delivery will send it over later. I was stunned before replying, oh. Ryan Anderson did not reply again. I clutched my cell phone, but I didn't feel like sleeping. Only, there was no more message from his side. Almost 40 minutes later, the doorbell rang. I got up a little wanly and went over to open the door. But the door to the room opened, and it wasn't the delivery boy standing outside. It was Ryan Anderson, who still had a tired look on his face. Ryan Anderson? I was stunned. He still had the bag of medicine in his hand, and there wasn't much expression on his face. Still have that toothache? I nodded dumbly. He put down the medicine and turned to the bathroom to wash and sanitize his hands. Open your mouth, let me take a look. You're not a dentist. Amanda Johnson, what toothache have you ever had that I didn't take care of? After he said this, we both froze for a moment. We hadn't seen each other in 5 years. Ryan Anderson's face was slightly cold, but the movements of his hands were incredibly gentle. I was pressed against the couch by him, tilted my face up, and opened my mouth. The slender fingers skillfully touched the wisdom tooth that I often hurt. But actually, for once, the tooth wasn't red and inflamed. Ryan Anderson gave me a look. Then, slowly and methodically, withdrew his fingers. Amanda Johnson. He took sterilized wipes and wiped his fingers clean, one by one. Then, cupping my face, he lowered his head. Lie to me. I was a little afraid to look at him, my eyes flickering away from looking him straight in the eye. I'm sorry. No need to say sorry. Ryan Anderson suddenly hooked his lips and smiled. I'm happy. Ryan Anderson? I looked at him in surprise when he kissed me. I'm not going to make my flight. What then? This time I'm going back for a blind date. And now the wife is flying. Well, what then? You tell me, Amanda Johnson. Ryan Anderson's fingers brushed the messy hair from my cheek. Deepening the kiss a little, why don't you give me one? I've been married and I've had kids. It doesn't matter. I'm old enough to have a wife and be satisfied. I couldn't help but laugh. Ryan Anderson, what kind of man are you? You've got women chasing you all the way to France. Ryan Anderson looked at me deeply, but I'd rather have more than I need. Look, I can't tell. You'll be able to tell when I do it later. I really didn't realize at the time that Ryan Anderson's comment was actually a double entendre. Until our first time, he didn't even hold back enough to carry me back to bed. My knees hurt a little from grinding on the couch. I couldn't resist biting him. Ryan Anderson, my knee hurts. His hot palms pinched my waist and rolled me over in his arms. The position changed to him leaning back on the couch and me with my back to him, sitting in his arms. Only, the moment I sat down, I felt the muscles in his waist and abdomen instantly tense up. Even his breathing was sharp and ragged. Choo-choo, I'm sorry, I can't help it a little. Originally, I thought that his previous sentence was meant for me to see how he would behave later. But how could I not have expected it? He is nearly 30 years old, but it is still his first time. In all these years abroad, he hasn't had a single girlfriend. Ryan Anderson, you haven't had a relationship in all these years? I lay back on the pillow and let him clean me up. Ryan Anderson's eyes were downcast and his hands were gentle, but he didn't look at me or say anything. Until he came out of the shower. In a rare moment, he took his cigarettes and went out to the patio. When I went to him, he had the cigarette between his fingers and was looking at the deep sky, wondering what he was thinking. Ryan Anderson. I wrapped my arms gently around his waist from behind, thinking about what? Wondering if you're going to take charge, or if you're just going to put on your skirt and leave. I couldn't help but laugh. Am I that bad? He looked back at me, but his eyes held a faint red. You are. Ryan Anderson. I couldn't stop laughing, my eyes were sore and swollen. Yes, I promised him back when he left the country. I'd marry him when he came back. But I fell in love with Leo Thompson. And then, in a blur, I had that one night of misadventure with him. Ryan Anderson. I hugged him tightly. I'm responsible for you. Good. He hugged me tighter and kissed me hard. Amanda Johnson, if you say you're responsible, then you're responsible for me to the end. 30th day in Port City. Leo Thompson had not yet signed the divorce papers. I didn't bother to wait any longer and sued directly to the court. The day Leo Thompson received the indictment. Noah Thompson's kindergarten teacher also gave me a call. Sichen's mom, Sichen always dozes off and wanders off in school these days. I don't think he's in good spirits, and he's lost some weight. I sighed softly. Ms. Xia, you'd better contact Noah Thompson's father. Mr. Sichen's mom, can you come to school? It's been a long time since I've seen you drop off or pick up Sichen. Sorry, it's not convenient. Okay then, sorry to bother you. When I was about to hang up, I couldn't hold back. Mr. Xia, when Sichen's father comes to pick him up, you can ask him to keep an eye on him to see if he's secretly playing tablet games in the middle of the night. Noah Thompson did pretend to be asleep before and then secretly play games in the middle of the night. Once I caught him playing games in the middle of the night, I was so angry that I dropped the tablet. But it wasn't long before he received several new tablets for his birthday. Maybe because he was afraid I'd drop them again, he did restrain himself from sneaking games in the middle of the night. But now that I'm gone, Leo Thompson is busy with the company and Sophia more every day. He doesn't have the energy to care about him. Although I have decided to divorce Leo Thompson and I don't want Noah Thompson. After all, he is still my child, and I don't want to see him completely wasted. But, I'm just being kind and reminding. Leo Thompson had never felt that disciplining a child was such an exhausting task. He listened to his kindergarten teacher and went to Noah Thompson's room in the middle of the night. Sure enough, he caught him secretly playing games. He dropped the tablet in a fit of rage as well. It wasn't until this moment that he seemed to suddenly understand why Amanda Johnson was so angry and disappointed in the first place. When he bought Noah Thompson a new flatbed, why was Amanda Johnson so angry that she had a big fight with him? He didn't hold back and slapped Noah Thompson. Noah Thompson was obviously shocked, cried for a long time, and went to bed alone and honest. But Leo Thompson was half asleep. He thought about the phone call that Secretary's song made to Amanda Johnson that night. In fact, at first, he had acquiesced and didn't stop it. It was only Amanda Johnson's words and attitude that made him instantly burst into a rage. Because of one Sophia Moore, she was capricious and reckless to such an extent. It simply burned him out. He knew she was just blackmailing him with a divorce. And Noah Thompson was so neglectful and disobedient. It's really all Amanda Johnson's tactics. She just wanted him to know she mattered. Leo Thompson finishes a cigarette and gets his cell phone out. It was for Noah Thompson that he took the initiative to call her. Noah Thompson was the flesh and blood of the Fu family, but it was also Amanda Johnson who had given birth to him through 9 deaths. As a mother, she could not ignore her own child. But Leo Thompson, how did not expect? All of his contacts have been blacked out by Amanda Johnson. Even her best friend's phone number, now, also cannot get through. Leo Thompson held back his anger and walked all the way downstairs. The night breeze blew, but he still felt that his anger could not be dissipated. Amanda Johnson wants to play for real, right? Okay. Leo Thompson smiled back in anger. Didn't she want a divorce? Then he'd let her have it. He couldn't wait to see how Amanda Johnson would look when he signed the divorce papers. He couldn't wait to see the look on Amanda Johnson's face when he actually signed the divorce papers. Faking it and making it real. She must regret it so much. After all, she adored him that much. So much so that Sophia Moore had just left the country and she'd immediately appeared in front of him. And she'd seduced him into having that night with her. With Noah Thompson, he became Mrs. Fu as he wished. Then this time, he would definitely teach Amanda Johnson the hardest lesson. He will let her know what it means to have no regrets. When Leo Thompson's attorney called, Ryan Anderson was tirelessly pestering me to prove that he wasn't on the outside looking in. Ms. Chen, Mr. Fu asked me to inform you that the divorce procedure will take place in Beijing the day after tomorrow. When the lawyer's voice came in cold and polite, I only felt that the last big stone in my heart suddenly fell to the ground. Good, you tell Mr. Fu that I will return to Beijing on time to handle it. After hanging up the phone, Ryan Anderson hugged me from behind. Lock Chor, I'll go back with you. I shook my head. This is between me and Leo Thompson, I can handle it myself. Ryan Anderson's eyes were full of uneasiness, but Luchu, I'm worried. I deliberately teased him, what are you worried about? Are you afraid that I won't be able to leave? Ryan Anderson suddenly smiled, but the smile was indescribably broken. Lock Chor, you won't know how hard it was for me when I heard you were with Leo Thompson back then. But I will never push you, force you. You are free. You don't have to take me seriously when I said I wanted you to be responsible for me. Even if you're not responsible for me, it doesn't matter. I turned around and hugged him, tilting my face up and kissing him softly. It's Ryan Anderson. I've had so much fun with you these past few days. And just now, you made me feel so good. I nibbled on his chin, I'll be responsible for you, when I get back. Ryan Anderson's eyes, always warm and quiet, looked like a sky full of stars had fallen into them for a moment. Amanda Johnson. He rolled over and pinned me to the bed, his deep, mellow voice ringing in my ears. I can make you even more comfortable. Does that mean, for the rest of your life, you won't be able to leave me? I couldn't help but laugh, but my entire body almost fell apart when he hit me. Physiological tears bled from the corners of my eyes, a layer of moisture swirling around them. Ryan Anderson. He lowered his head and kissed me delicately. That forcefulness gradually turned back into a gentle rubbing. I couldn't take it anymore and whimpered, Ryan Anderson, it's so hard. Is it hard? Or comfortable, Lock Chor, tell me. He also seemed to hold back to the extreme, the muscles on his small arms tightened. Sweat on his forehead smashed down on my chest one by one. I finally couldn't stand it and cried, shaking my head, it's comfortable, comfortable. Lock Chor, when you're comfortable, come back early. As the last of my consciousness drew away, I felt Ryan Anderson kiss my brow very tenderly. I'll wait for you in Hong Kong, Lock Chor. The day I got back to the capital, I went straight to the lawyers. Just as I got off the bus, I saw Leo Thompson and Sophia Moore. Sophia Moore was full of joy, and in the end, she even cried tears of joy. Then Leo Thompson was full of heartache and gently hugged her. Several lawyers stood to one side and all turned their backs sagely. I know, Sophia Moore's divorce lawsuit should be settled. So Leo Thompson can't wait to get his divorce finalized with me and be single again. That's good. Sophia Moore is happy, Leo Thompson is happy, Noah Thompson is happy. And I, and Ryan Anderson, are comfortable and happy. How in the world could there be such a perfect thing? When I thought about it, I couldn't hold back my laughter. But as soon as I laughed, Sophia Moore saw me. She instantly became unhappy. Pulling Leo Thompson's sleeve, she didn't know what to say. Leo Thompson turned back to me, his eyes cold and detached to the extreme. Amanda Johnson, what are you laughing at? Sophia Moore's eyes were red, hiding behind Leo Thompson like a bunny. It was as if she had suffered a great grievance. Miss Sue is happy to be divorced, and I'm happy to be getting divorced, too, can't I? Leo Thompson choked. The chill under his eyes seemed to have gotten a little heavier. Sophia Moore was busy tugging on his sleeve again. Hanzhou, you and Ms. Chen have something to talk about, don't get angry. We have nothing to talk about, Mr. Fu, the formalities should be handled as soon as possible. Amanda Johnson, have I ever reminded you to do everything in moderation? I raised an eyebrow, what do you mean? If the divorce is finalized, you'll have nothing more to do with the Fu family. And Noah Thompson, I will never let you see him again. When I heard those words, I was a little disappointed. People can realize things in a flash. But you can't let go of the bonds that bind you to your flesh and blood in an instant. But I am an individual first, and then I am Noah Thompson's mom. I believe that after a long time of healing, that day will come. Mr. Fu, in fact, if I were to file a lawsuit against you for visitation rights, I could definitely win. But I don't want to waste any more time on this. Noah Thompson and I are not destined to see each other, so let's not see each other. I don't know why, but after these words, Leo Thompson didn't feel happy as if he was relieved, but he was like a cat that had its tail stepped on, somewhat out of sorts. Amanda Johnson, you're really cruel. I've never seen a more ruthless and cold-blooded mother than you. I didn't understand that Sichin didn't like you, but I understand now. Since you're unrepentant, I won't give you another chance. After he finished speaking, he turned around and got into his car and left. He didn't even notice that Sophia Moore wasn't in the car yet. I didn't care what he said. Because I had long ago stopped even caring about him as a person. The divorce went down to the last item of procedure. Leo Thompson, such a decisive person, inexplicably became sticky. Amanda Johnson, the last word hasn't been signed yet, so if, you'll admit your mistake now. Admit what? I signed my name without hesitation. Pushing the paper in front of Leo Thompson. For not being tolerant enough of your mistress? Or the fault of strictly disciplining the children? Perhaps it was my attitude that completely infuriated Leo Thompson. He grimaced, picked up a pen and signed. Amanda Johnson, there's no use regretting this. Even if you come back crying and begging, I won't go soft on you anymore. I stood up and took special care to carefully put all the documents away properly. Mr. Fu, Noah Thompson is not bad by nature, he will not go astray if he is disciplined in the future. You are his real father, I believe you will fulfill your duty. Don't worry, Noah Thompson will be the best heir of the Fu family in the future. I smiled, I hope so, naturally it's best. I sneaked back to Hong Kong. A day earlier than I agreed with Ryan Anderson. At that time, Ryan Anderson was dining at the hotel's cafeteria. I gave him a call. On the phone, I deliberately pretended to be depressed. Ryan Anderson. Lok Chor, what's wrong with you? I may not be able to come back to Hong Kong as promised. There was silence on the other end of the line for a few seconds. Have you met with any accidents? I'm booking a flight now, don't worry, wait until I get there. No, Ryan Anderson. I stood by the fountain outside the restaurant, looking in the glass window at his figure as he put down his knife and fork and stood up, walking quickly out the door. All I felt was a sour sweetness that suddenly filled my heart. Do you look out and see the fountain? Ryan Anderson stopped walking and turned to look my way. I smiled at him and waved vigorously. Ryan Anderson, I'm here. The restaurant was full of people. My eyes, however, could only see his one silhouette. He took his cell phone and walked quickly towards me. After a few steps, he simply ran. The sun was setting at dusk, and the sunset was picturesque. The wind swept up the hem of his trench coat, revealing his long legs. He smiled at me, his eyes slightly red. Handsome and heart-stopping, he made my heart completely flutter. Until he takes me hard in his arms, tight, locked in. Amanda Johnson. He cupped my face and kissed me somewhat forcefully. The kiss ended with a light bite on my lips. Amanda Johnson, do you know that? Know what? That I hate you. Ryan Anderson raised his hand to blindfold me and kissed the light teeth marks on my lips again. But I love you more, Amanda Johnson. Ryan Anderson and I settled in Harbor City temporarily after registering our marriage. The second month after we got married, one of Leo Thompson's best friends suddenly called me. Sister-in-law, is this a convenient time for you? What's the matter? Sister-in-law, I'm meeting some of my friends for a drink tonight, and he's drunk. Even after he got drunk, he refused to let us send him home. You can call Fu's family or ask Sophia Moore to pick him up. I glanced at the closed bathroom door and gently opened my mouth to interrupt. Sister-in-law. Hanjo did not allow, just now, he suddenly shouted your name. I only felt amused. If I hadn't divorced him. If Sophia Moore has not returned to singleness nowadays. What he shouted would have been Sophia Moore's name. There's a certain kind of man who only ever seems to love the woman who leaves them. I interrupted my friend. From now on, it's better to call me Amanda Johnson. And by the way, Leo Thompson and I have long been divorced, so what happens to him is out of my hands. After saying that, I didn't wait for the person on the other side to say anything else, so I just hung up the phone. Just as I hung up, Ryan Anderson came out of the bathroom. Who's calling? He just asked naturally. And I responded back with a very indifferent, someone unimportant. I said, and grabbed a towel to help him dry off. Ryan Anderson took it from me, you don't have to do that. I'm not tired. He dried his hair in a couple of strokes and smiled at me, that's not necessary either, you don't have to do anything when I'm around. But he patiently dried my long hair, every single day. Doesn't that bother you? Ryan Anderson turns on the warm air on medium and sniffs and just gives me a gentle look. I'm not the one who's in the middle of a blessing. Husband. I couldn't help but hug him back and tilt my face up for a kiss. Ryan Anderson then lowered his head and kissed me, but stopped with restraint, wait for your hair to dry, or you'll get a headache. I glared at him and couldn't help but touch the hard abs on his waist, you're the only one who can wait at a time like this. After our honeymoon, after our wedding, Ryan Anderson and I went back to Beijing together. Except for my closest family and best friend. Not many people in Beijing knew about my marriage. And we planned to have a wedding in Beijing. After all, Ryan Anderson and I have family here. I met Leo Thompson again at a birthday party for one of our elders. The elder was not close to our family, but was very close to Ryan Anderson's parents. So Ryan Anderson brought me along. Only then, just after entering, Ryan Anderson was called away by the elder. He's always abroad, so naturally he's considered a rare guest. I went over to the dining table to pick up some cupcakes, and when I turned around, I saw Leo Thompson and Noah Thompson. Father and son were dressed exactly the same little face, still quite attractive. When he saw me, Noah Thompson's eyes lit up. He even subconsciously called out to his mom and was about to come over to my side. But just after taking 2 steps, he seemed to have thought of something and stopped his steps. Leo Thompson was still expressionless, but the corners of his lips were taut. I nodded to them, pushed down the trace of heartache in my heart, and was about to turn around and leave. Leo Thompson, however, suddenly walked over to me. Amanda Johnson. He looked at me for a while before speaking again, since you're back in Beijing, go back to Fu's house and stay there, Sichin misses you. I was rather surprised, back to Fu's house? Leo Thompson coughed lightly and looked away, his voice was a bit unnatural, you are after all Sichin's real mother. He is not yet 6 years old, and is in need of a mother to take care of him. Leo Thompson, we're divorced. I wrinkled my nose, and was once again ready to turn around and leave. Amanda Johnson, Sophia Moore is back in the States. Leo Thompson, however, tugged at me and inexplicably said this. Does it have anything to do with me? I shrugged off his hand and took a step back. How is it not relevant? He frowned, wasn't Sophia Moore the reason you got angry and got divorced in the first place? She's gone now, and it's time for your anger to die down. It's not like I won't consider remarrying now that you're back. After all, you're Sichin's real mother, better than an outsider. Leo Thompson, how much clearer do you want me to be? When I divorced you, I never wanted to get back together with you. Amanda Johnson, I'm giving you a leg up. I don't need it. I couldn't help myself and raised my hand to show him, Leo Thompson, I'm married. The wedding ring on the ring finger, low-key dazzling sparkle. Leo Thompson's black eyes swiftly, his face suddenly cold and heavy. But in an instant, he looked at me again and smiled faintly, Lok Chor, you really don't have to do this. I also said that you want to remarry, it's not like I won't consider it. You said you're married, what about your husband? I don't think you can find a better man than me after you've been married and had a child. And what's more, you love me. He said it with such certainty, certain that if I had loved him, I would always love him. Sure that in my heart I desperately wanted to remarry him, but was too shy to say so. Certain that if he beckoned, I would spinelessly go back. But he didn't know that. In fact, I didn't know it myself. Maybe my so-called love for him, in his drunkenness and sex forced me that night there is a crack. The reason I agreed to marry him. More likely, it was because of Noah Thompson. Just as I finally made up my mind to divorce him, it was also because of Noah Thompson. At one time, my children were the cause of my happiness and freedom. But now, nothing can tie me down. Leo Thompson, although you are a bully, the world you live in is not a bully novel. I was kind enough to admonish him, why don't you take some time, go for a brain CT, and take a good look at your brain. Just as I finished speaking, I saw Ryan Anderson walking fast. He was dressed in a full black business suit, and he looked very handsome. He also wore a wedding ring on the ring finger of his left hand, which was exactly the same as mine. Choo-choo. He called my name in a warm voice. He walked to my side and naturally clasped his fingers with mine. The rings on our hands were a perfect match for each other. But the lone Bulgari wedding ring on Leo Thompson's hand was unspeakably ridiculous. Honey, I'm a little hungry, get me that cupcake, I want the mango one. Ryan Anderson pinched my face, okay, but keep the sweets to a minimum or your teeth will hurt. He turned around and grabbed a plate to help me get the cake. Leo Thompson, however, suddenly lost his temper and reached out to knock down the plate. Ryan Anderson frowned and raised his eyes in displeasure. Mr. Fu, what are you doing? You're the one lockjaw paid for, aren't you? It looks really human-like. Leo Thompson looked him up and down and snorted. Amanda Johnson is my ex-wife, and she gave me a son. Are you sure you want to pick up a woman I don't want? The air around us suddenly became dead silent. I didn't care about my past. But being openly taunted by Leo Thompson in public like this, it was inevitable that I would be a little embarrassed. Ryan Anderson did not speak. The expression on his face didn't even move. He just turned around and walked over to me, took off the wristwatch I gave him, and took off his wedding ring and handed it to me. Lockjaw, hold this for me, I don't want to get it dirty. I took it uncertainly. Ryan Anderson, what are you doing? Lockjaw, wait for me for 5 minutes. He lowered his eyes and folded his sleeves up a little. Walking over to Leo Thompson, he swung his fist and slammed it into his face. I don't like to hit people with my hands, but Leo Thompson, you brought this on yourself. As he spoke, another punch landed hard. You shouldn't have humiliated my wife. Leo Thompson quickly came back to his senses and began to fight back. Your wife? Amanda Johnson has been married to me for 5 years and has given me children. What kind of wife is she? May I remind you that you're divorced? So what if I'm divorced? How much does Amanda Johnson love me? Why don't you ask her? Enough. I was heartbroken, angry, and anxious. I pushed Leo Thompson away and shielded myself in front of Ryan Anderson. Leo Thompson, I stopped loving you a long time ago. Do you hear me clearly? What did you say? Leo Thompson looked at me with a cold look in his eyes. Amanda Johnson, try saying that again. Leo Thompson, I don't love you anymore. Maybe I haven't loved you since you forced yourself on me while you were drunk. Then why did you say yes to my proposal? Why do you want to marry me? Leo Thompson sneered. Amanda Johnson, you just like new things, you just change your mind. You don't even want your own child, so how long do you think this man will like you again? Why can't I change my mind? Leo Thompson, didn't you have a change of heart? You liked Sophia Moore, but you had drunken sex with me. You married me, and you slept with Sophia Moore. What are you doing? I didn't sleep with Sophia Moore. Amanda Johnson, I haven't had anything to do with Sophia Moore since I married you. Leo Thompson looked at me and suddenly sneered. I admit, I was apoplectic when Sophia Moore came back. But that night, at the end of the day, I thought of you and I left from her house anyway. I was a bit surprised. But other than that, there were no emotions left. Whether or not he and Sophia Moore had made it to the last step was irrelevant. Even if they hadn't, I'd still be determined to get a divorce. That's enough, Leo Thompson. It's all over. I'm married and I love my husband. I turned and clutched Ryan Anderson's hand tightly. We're fine and in love, you, too, move on. What about Noah Thompson? You don't want your own flesh and blood that you carried to term in October. Leo Thompson's eyes were red. He looked like a spoiled child who only realized he was afraid when he was finally given up. My vision blurred slightly. Yet, I still nodded my head. Well, don't. In fact, if Noah Thompson had given me a chocolate that day, I might still not be able to let him go and would fight for his custody against all odds. I might still have gone soft one heart at a time. But when Noah Thompson walked past me and slammed the door, my heart, literally, died. Leo Thompson turned and pulled Noah Thompson outside. But Noah Thompson suddenly broke away from his hand with a loud cry. I don't want to go with you, I want my mom. Mommy, I won't play games anymore, I know I'm wrong, come back. Noah Thompson ran over to me and grabbed my hand tightly and wouldn't let go. I can't deny that I still feel bad and my heart aches. But I also knew that I would never forget that day. When I was at my most helpless, my child turned away in such a cold and selfish way. What if I hadn't made it through, and I died like that? Noah Thompson, go back with your father. Whether you're a child or an adult, you're responsible for your own choices. No, I'm not going back, Mom. I want to be with you. I don't want to be separated from you. Noah Thompson cried and cried. It was as if he really knew he was afraid and wrong. Because that day, he was sick in the hospital, and Sophia Moore was taking care of him. But when he fell asleep, he was awakened by the sound of Sophia Moore on the phone. He heard Sophia Moore say, "Why should I be here to take care of someone else's child, not my own? How can I possibly please this annoying child if I'm not trying to get a smooth divorce? Noah Thompson's an idiot, too, and he says I'm nicer to him than Amanda Johnson." That's a laugh. What kind of mom doesn't love her own flesh and blood as much as she loves someone else's? But it's good that he's stupid, because if I marry Leo Thompson and he's stupid, then my kids will have no one to compete with. He didn't really understand. After all, these topics were too profound for a 5-year-old. But he did understand one sentence. What mom doesn't love her own flesh and blood as much as she loves someone else's? Yes, a real mom is always better than a stepmom. He seemed to understand something from that day on. He remembered how good I was. But unfortunately, it was too late. If your father agrees, I'll go back to see you. If you miss me, you can come and see me too. But for now, I'm sorry Noah Thompson, I'm starting my own life. I touched his little face, just as I had done the last time we parted. Good luck, Noah Thompson. Ryan Anderson and I had a wedding in Beijing. On the day of the wedding, Leo Thompson and Noah Thompson came. Only I didn't let either of them in. Leo Thompson gave a very heavy gift. Ryan Anderson confiscated it and had it sent directly to the charitable foundation. Noah Thompson had a gift for me, too. It was a handmade craft from him and a card. I kept the card and gave it to a favorite child. I recognized the Bulgari wedding ring on Leo Thompson's hand. I also heard that when Ryan Anderson took me home, the Rolls-Royce seemed to follow him to our wedding home. But it's a private house, so his car couldn't get in. We were in the middle of our wedding night, in the middle of our most intimate moment. Ryan Anderson suddenly whispered in my ear. Lok Chor, do you think he'd go crazy with jealousy if he were out there right now? I kicked him angrily. What kind of bad taste is that, Ryan Anderson? Ryan Anderson took hold of my ankles and pushed them up a little. He sank down and kissed me deeply, because that's what I did for thousands of days and nights before I went crazy with jealousy. Ryan Anderson. I was a little heartbroken and couldn't help but hug him tighter. Instead, he kissed me tenderly in the ear again. But not anymore. Lok Chor, it's Leo Thompson who'll be jealous from now on. And I'll make him jealous for the rest of his life, including the next.